So this week's topic is about deforestation and habitat loss. So we're going to be learning about deforestation and why and how it matters. So these are our objectives today. We're going to understand the cause and consequences of deforestation, learn how habitat loss affects biodiversity, discover the science behind the carbon cycle and soil erosion, and explore conservation projects and student-friendly actions. So first, let's start off by talking about what deforestation is. So deforestation basically means cutting down or clearing forests for other use. And so common causes include agriculture. So a lot of people cut down these forests for farms and cattle ranching, logging for timber. A lot of wood is cut down for anything you see in your house, such as your desk, pencils, your bed, all sorts of things, and urban development. A lot of forests are also cut down for building new homes, shopping centers, resorts. And because of this, it can actually cause major environmental changes because you are degrading habitat loss. And about 10 million hectares is lost every year. So that's a lot of land. But also, besides human removal, it could also be caused by natural consequences, including like big fires or storms that can naturally wipe an area. So let's talk about the different causes. So, as we discussed previously, deforestation can be caused by either humans or nature, but it is primarily caused by human activities because of our drive for the need of food, shelter, and economic growth. So let's talk about three different types. So the first is agriculture. So agriculture is one of the most leading causes. The forests are often cleared to grow crops like soil, palm oil, or raising cattle, which are some of the most common ones. This is very, very common in regions like the Amazon rainforest or Southeast Asia, where these three items are a big essential and they are needed for profit. They need this to meet global food demands, as a lot of those.
Sorry, guys, the video paused.
It's okay.
Uh, is it my internet? I guess so.
These three items are a big essential and they are needed for profit. They need this to meet global food demands, as a lot of those.
Nah. Sorry. I guess we'll just have to wait
These
until it gets back up again. I'll try to refresh the screen. 1 second.
Hi everyone, welcome to learn how habitat lock down these forests, shopping, and so let's talk about the crops. Like a lot of those products are only sourced there.
Okay, it's back up again. Here you guys go. Just okay.
But in doing so, it destroys a lot of habitats and releases a lot of stored carbon, which is not good for the environment. Logging. So there's different types of logging. There's both legal and illegal. It is also a very big drive of deforestation. So basically, what happens is These are cut down for timber, furniture, or paper products, which are very common. Even though some of the logging is regulated, a lot of it can happen illegally, especially in tropical rainforests, because it's such a huge area. So there's not a lot of concern for replanting or how it affects a whole entire ecosystem. And lastly, there's urbanization. So this is basically when cities or infrastructures are expanded into forest area. So as populations grow and more people uh, are on Earth, we need more spaces for homes, roads, and industries. So this can cause a lot of forests and wildlife to be pushed out of their natural habitats and spaces for these new cities. There are also indirect causes that can worsen this problem. So roads built for logging or mining, open access places can actually ruin forests on the way because in order to get to the forest, you have to build roads. So that is also affecting forests. Different mining operations, they have to clear lots of land in order to mine for whatever they need to mine for, and it can cause a lot of pollution in the surrounding areas. But there's also a lot of stuff such as poverty and population growth that cause people to exploit these forests in order for survival or for income. They have no other choice. So it is not a direct but an indirect cause. So while deforestation can bring short-term benefits like more farmland for food or jobs for people, the long-term costs like climate change, biodiversity, and soil erosion are far, far greater. So that's why it's important for us to find sustainable solutions. So let's talk about the impact on biodiversity. So forests are incredibly rich ecosystems. About 80% of all terrestrial animal species live there. So from tiny insects to large mammals, a lot of the animals that we have on Earth live in these forests. So by cutting down all these forests, we aren't just removing the plants and trees that inhabit the area, but we're destroying lots of habitats that countless species rely on for survival. So habitat loss is actually the number one cause of species extinction. Because if you think about it, without shelter, food, or breeding grounds, many animals cannot simply adapt fast enough. They do not have food, then they cannot reproduce. And if they don't reproduce, they don't have any of their lineage that continues on. And the tragedy is a lot of species actually go extinct before scientists can even discover them. Earth is such a huge place. There's lots and lots of species. Many new ones are being found every day. But because of habitat loss, a lot of the species are actually never found because of how quickly they go extinct. Deforestation can also cause something called edge effects. So this happens when deep forest is turned into fragmented patches. So it's basically when there's a large piece of forest, but there's different parts of it that are being destroyed. So it can cause these little patches. These patches are actually really dangerous because they expose more sunlight, wind, and human contact. And this is in all not good because it can shift how the place is, which can always allow for invasive species to spread. And so invasive species are species that are not supposed to be living in that area. They can be very harmful as they can replace the native animals that live there and also just take over everything. They can eat all the plants that these native animals rely on, or they can disrupt whole entire ecosystem. So they basically outcompete them and they can very much unbalance the ecosystem. Another major impact is disruption of food webs and migration routes. So if a key species disappears, that other rely on it. So think about it. If a species of insect were to destroy and just go extinct, animals such as birds or small mammals that rely on that would have no food, and this could cause them to decline in numbers, which in turn would cause higher predators such as jaguars to lose the food that they rely on, and this can cause all levels of the food web to go down. Also, it is also a big impact for migration. Birds need to migrate depending on different seasons. So during the winter, they might have to migrate one place and summer the other. But because of the deforestation, there's no place for them to stop in between or for them to rest. It can cause them to travel further or change their whole entire route, which in turn affects their whole entire journey. But ultimately, this deforestation leads to a cascade of biodiversity loss. And when we lose a species, we lose more than just that. We lose potential medicines, cultural heritage, and the balance of nature itself. Think about the people that live in these forests because of all the changes that is going on. They can lose a piece of their culture as well. Let's talk about some science. So, we're going to talk about some carbon cycle and soil erosion. The deforestation doesn't just affect wildlife, it also seriously disrupts Earth's natural systems, especially the carbon cycle and soil stability. The first forces is act as a carbon sink. So that basically means they absorb large amounts of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere during photosynthesis. In fact, fun fact is forests generate about 289 gigatons of carbon in their biomasses, which is a lot. So without these forests, the oxygen we breathe in will be mostly carbon dioxide, and that can be very dangerous for us humans. But exactly, when trees are cut down, especially if they're burned, a lot of practices burn down forests, but it could also be because of wildfires. This could lead to stored carbon being released back into the atmosphere, which can raise our greenhouse gas levels. So this directly contributes to climate change, basically increasing global temperatures and extreme weathers. Now let's talk about some soil erosion. So tree roots do more than just hold our trees in place, they also hold the soil together. So without roots, rain and wind can easily wash or blow away the top layer of soil. This is called erosion, and it can lead to unstable land that's harder to use for farming and construction. But this could be very harmful because the forests that are once cleared for these practices are no longer sustainable. But it could also cause very big natural disasters like mudslides and stuff to happen, which is unsafe for people who live in this surrounding area. And again, mudslides, but also flooding, because if the soil cannot absorb any water, especially in dry places, it can lead to desertification. And this can cause this nice, once fertile land with lots of plants to become a desert where it's uninhabitable and it cannot grow any more plants. And this can be very destructive for a lot of people, especially people who live there for farming, but also for the animals that rely on the plants or the animals that live in these forests. The science shows that deforestation doesn't just remove trees, it throws off the climate balance and damages the foundation of life on land, the soil. So let's talk about a few global forces that are currently at risk. The most famous one probably is the Amazon rainforest. So the Amazon rainforest is located in Brazil. It is often called as the lungs of the earth. The Amazon rainforest stores massive amounts of carbon and produces about 20% of the world's oxygen. So if you think about that, that's a lot of oxygen. But one of the biggest causes for it to be at risk is being cleared for agriculture, especially cattle ranching and soy farming. These two practices are one of the biggest exports Brazil has. And because of that, a lot of forests are being cut down in the Amazon for these practices. But also mining. Mining is also very dangerous to the environment because it can cause pollution, especially into rivers or large bodies of water, and it can damage ecosystems. Another forest that is not talked about a lot is the Borneo forest. So this is in Indonesia and Malaysia. These rainforests are actually home to a lot of critically endangered species, like the famous orangutan in this picture here, and the pygmy elephants. So it is home to a lot of cool animals that you would have never thought were from there. But a lot of these places are currently being cleared for a practice called palm oil plantation. So palm oil is actually very, very harmful because not the product itself, but what causes to make that product. So In Borneo right now, a lot of the forests are being cleared for palm oil because it is one of the biggest exports. A lot of the locals rely on it for income. And palm oil is actually in a lot of the stuff we use. It is in your lotion, it's in your chapstick, it's in your food. It is everywhere. It is such a popular, cheap usage of oil that these plantations are actually growing in numbers. And by doing so, a lot of forests are being cut down, and these orangutans no longer have places to go, which is why they are actually critically endangered because of the little land that is left for them. So it is important that when we shop for products, that we are shopping sustainability. It is very good if we try to use products with less palm oil and find alternatives because of the dangerous practice that happens to get these palm oil. Another place that has very big wildlife is the Congo Basin. So the Congo Basin is located in Central Africa, and it is also a very critical hotspot right now. It is actually the second largest rainforest in the world, and it supports millions and millions of people. Millions of people live in these forests, and they rely on what the forest has to offer for, a way of life. But it is currently being threatened by logging, both legal and illegal, as well as charcoal trade and political instability. So charcoal is very popular and you might use it at home too, but a lot of it is sourced here because of its natural deposits. But also there's something called tantalum, which is in your cell phones, your tablets, your TVs, anything that can be recharged. It is in there. It is also being mined in the Congo Basin. And by doing so, as we talked about earlier, by mining, you're actually clearing large deposits of forests, but that is also leading to deforestation, but also causing pollution in the surrounding area. So by doing this, it is very, very harmful for one of the most endangered species there, which are the gorillas. There's different types of species of gorillas that live in the Congo Basin, but they're currently being affected by all these practices because of the forests being cleared. And so, how can you help them over there? For tantalum, we should be recycling our old electronics to places. If you're located in Houston, the Houston Zoo has a phone box where you can drop off old electronics, and the tantalum will be recycled, so it wouldn't have to be mined for in the Congo Basin again. But also, a lot of recycling centers take in these old electronics, so we can help conserve the tantalum we have left. And while all these forces and what all these forces have in common is that they have biodiversity hotspots and vital climate regulators. So they are super important because they offered Earth a lot of biodiversity, but also they help regulate the climate on our Earth. So they actually do a lot of stuff like stabilizing our weather patterns. They filter our fresh water, the fresh water we have to drink, and they support a lot of unique plant and animal life. So when we lose forests in the Amazon or in the Congo Basin, it doesn't just affect the people and the animals and plants that live in those countries, but it affects everybody because it impacts our air quality, our water cycles, and global climate systems, which we all heavily depend on. So let's talk about some conservation projects that are happening right now. So while deforestation is such a serious issue, there is a lot of global efforts that are being enacted to protect and restore these forests, and many of them are actually making a real difference. So one of the most direct methods is reforestation, and this practice is basically meaning planting new trees where forests have once been cleared. So many countries and organizations are currently working on massive reforestation projects like the Great Green Wall in Africa or Brazil's efforts to restore parts of the Amazon. So these projects are helpful because they help bring back lost ecosystems and they can capture carbon from the atmosphere. So reforestation is definitely one of the best practices because in once cleared areas by replanting native wildlife, it can help for forests to regrow. It does have a con because it can take a while for forests to regrow, but it is a very sustainable practice. Another good tool is the creation of protected areas such as national parks, wildlife sanctuaries, and nature reserves. These areas are set aside to prevent development, mining, or logging. So think about all the national parks we have here in the US. They are protected, so no construction or anything can happen in those lands. So a lot of countries have these national parks too, where they protect these areas. So that is very sustainable as it can protect whole communities. Wildlife sanctuaries are also a good one because they help protect the animals that live there, and they can help a lot of the more critically endangered species, as we talked about, like the orangutans or the gorillas. These are really good. As I said, it helps the endangered species and it allows for ecosystems to recover, especially in species that are declining. By setting aside this area allows for populations to regrow and stabilize. Community forestry is also an approach that can help because it actually puts local people in charge of managing the forests. So instead of banning all activity in these forests, a lot of people in the communities are actually trained and empowered to use the forest sustainability. So for people who need it for food, for medicine, or for income, they are taught how to use their forests correctly and wisely in a way that does not affect entire ecosystem. And when people have, sort of a role or stake in conservation, they are definitely more likely to protect what's around them. So it is definitely a good thing because it involves local people in the place they call home. And finally, there are different policies and market based solutions. So many countries now have laws that are limiting illegal logging or requiring sustainable sourcing of wood or palm oil. So certifications like the FSC, the Forest Steward Council, lets consumers choose products that come from responsibly managed forests. Another way you can support without being part of this effort is just sourcing your things sustainably. So when you're sourcing paper, make sure you're sourcing paper that is not illegally mined. If you're trying to buy new cosmetic products, make sure you're shopping for items that do not contain palm oil, as a lot of it is mined illegally, and we want to make sure that we're using products that do not damage the ecosystem. So any effort like the ones I just talked about, or these big efforts, they are all solutions and they're all possible to helping fix the problem of deforestation. So let's talk about what you can do at home. So, one, as we talked about, let's reduce palm oil. When you're shopping for lotion, when you're shopping for snacks, make sure you're shopping for items that do not use palm oil. For paper, I know it's almost back to school time. When you're shopping for paper, make sure you're getting paper that is either sourced sustainably or it's you made from recycled paper. And fast fashion. Although there are a lot of cool fashion trends that are going on and you may want to participate, you want to make sure that you're not going by fast fashion, which are items that are just produced cheaply and are constantly being thrown out, and that is very, very harmful to the environment because of the waste that happens. Support different companies. A lot of companies now have um pledges or a mission to support sustainable practices. So the next time you're shopping for something, whether it's new clothes or new food items, make sure you're looking at the company's mission to see if they support any sustainable practices, because a lot of companies will donate a certain part of their portions to conservation efforts. So that can be a way that you can support. And then you can also raise awareness and educate others by letting your family or friends know about what is happening on Earth right now, especially with deforestation. Whether you're starting a club at school or you're educating your community, anything that helps raise awareness and educating others, it can be amazing as it can help more people consider what is more sustainable in their lifestyle and what can be fixed in order for deforestation to, slow down. Donate to or volunteer with conservation groups. So donating to big conservation groups is a great way to support because a lot of their funds goes to, As we talked about, replanting forests to educating the locals on how they can protect their forests, but also to wildlife sanctuaries. By you giving them the funds, they can help the animals that live there. But also, volunteering can be a great way. I know I volunteer with the Houston Zoo, and we do a lot of conservation projects. We do cleanups, we do replanting. So, by volunteering with like your local groups and stuff, you can actually make a direct impact to your community by helping um as a whole. And of course, one of the most important ways you can do is reduce your carbon footprint. I know here in the US it is really hard to walk around, but if you could just walk around to places that are close by, or biking could be a great option. And just by using public transportation, all that is a great way to reduce your carbon footprint. But also remembering the 3 R's: reuse, reduce, and recycle in your daily life can be a big part. I know we're not here in class today, but here are some discussion questions I would like for you guys to think about for homework, and we can kind of discuss the next time I see you guys. But think about, why do you think people are cutting down these forests? Do you think it's like intentional? Are they doing it on purpose? Are they just going to a forest and thinking like, let's just cut it all down? Well, think about that. Do you think so? And do you think there are better alternatives to this? Should people just be cutting down forests, or are there other ways we can do to find our wood? And think about what would happen if we just lost all of our forests. Think about how big of those forests we talked about, like the Amazon rainforest or the Congo Basin. Those are huge places. What would happen if we lost all of that? And how can we balance human needs with nature's needs? Us humans, we need some from the forest, but the animals and people who live in those areas, they need things too. So, how can we balance all of that? And what is something new you learned today? It could be anything, a fun fact, or something that you would like to implement in your life. Think about that and share it with a family so you can help more people join this action. And here are some really, really great resources. Um, I know NASA has a few, so I've linked some of here. You can just take a screenshot of this and copy this link address into your web page, and you can look at any of these websites. They're definitely really informative on a lot of things that are happening with deforestation and the profits and efforts that are going on right now, and how you can directly support and help these efforts. And so, yeah, I want to thank you guys for everything.